Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. And Thomas and I are gloating, along with everyone on the conclave and the team, about the amazing summit that happened last night, early this morning, depends on where you are in the world. And it was a world event that happened in Korea. And it was very exciting. And so this morning, one of my girlfriends called, Judy.
Hi, Judy. We love you.
We love you, darling. But Judy's like, she's just like really down in the dumps. I'm like, oh my gosh, wasn't this great? And she was like, well, this and well, that and well, that. I was like, why are you coming up with that feeling? And so it turns out she was watching the propaganda media. And I said, oh, Judy, there's so many things to be excited about.
If you could look at your face in the mirror after you watch propaganda media, including Fox News, you will notice that your upset, your stress, your depression is directly proportional to how much you watched. I watched Chris Wallace for no more than a couple minutes, and I'm sorry. Is Chris on Fox News? It said it was a Fox News thing. But anyway, Chris Wallace was just, every word came out of his mouth might as well have been from an inquisitor asking a witch, someone he thinks is a witch, questions. I mean, the slant is so horrible, you can't even hear one sentence without being propagandized, without being subliminally controlled, without being set up with narratives that are negative, and they're all nonsense. Right now, we should be rejoicing that the first president in 70 years was able to make the first move, and it's probably the big move for peace in the entire Korean peninsula, which, of course, is, you should remember from history that this was a China thing, okay? And it still is a China thing. And what did Trump keep harping on? Yes, well, the border, hasn't been secure. There's been a problem there when he was talking about North Korea. Does anyone know what that means? That means what we told you, that China wasn't recognizing the sanctions. They took in all those ships and they got caught 9 times, and then the UN said was going to put sanctions on China for breaking the sanctions on North Korea, who is launching missiles all the way over the island of Japan that could have had, some type of warhead on it, and no one did anything. China did nothing. Japan did nothing. Think about this. Then who's going to be in the peace agreement? What did Trump say? China and South Korea will sign that, because Trump isn't picking up the debt of the ruination of his nuclear program, which was the last straw that broke Kim's back, as well as Trump's rhetoric, which was, calling him out and saying, just because you scream loud doesn't mean I'm going to come pay you billions.
Now, Thomas, that's all well and good, but this is not a video and audio on China and Korea. This is an audio to help Judy get through her grayness today and thinking that it was a bad day or dreary day. Let's talk about the winning.
The winning is to watch the hour-long post that you put on Truth News Headlines of Trump speaking. That will be the first hour that some people will have ever heard a politician being honest. And look what honesty gets you. 7 trillion. He quotes 7 trillion in new assets. 7 trillion, folks. That means in a 4-year term, we won't have a debt to the U.S. Federal Reserve. Plus, I'm sure he'll just, if he's smart, he'll just go bankrupt on that and get rid of that debt. It's fake anyway. So 7 trillion, okay? And then peace in North Korea. That means peace with China. What that means is that China is being called out. When you say North Korea, you must say China. When you say peace on the Korean peninsula, that includes China. Okay, China started the war. Okay, and China kept this division going for their own purposes. And yes, they have always cheated on any sanctions with North Korea. And that's what Trump is referring to with the northern border of North Korea. He was calling out Premier Xi, saying, I know you're cheating again, so what? I'm not signing a big deal where I give away money. Trump didn't give away money. This will be the first time that a president probably has ever signed anything like this where they didn't give away billions of dollars. And so rejoice. This is the best news possible. The trade wars, we're going to win any trade war. You should be jumping up and down for joy.
Well, it's even bigger than that. because it told the globalists, you're on notice. No, you're not going to start any phony fake wars anymore. We're not going to fall for your false flags, because they were trying to stir up trouble over there. And then it also puts other nations on notice that Trump means business. The American people are tired of this. We mean business. We want peace.
Eric Schmidt already went to North Korea knowing this was going to happen and got all the big business deals already on the inside. When you can see that it's about economics. War is about economics, and that's what people don't understand. This is what was supposed to happen. He, like Syria, like Afghanistan, like Iraq, North Korea, like many of these places that scream and yell, we're going to kill all Americans. And we're also going to develop a nuclear program, because we can get parts and we can get centrifuges from Russia and from China and from even France. Who cares that, that America says, no, you can't have nuclear weapons. You are threatening the life of every American constantly. And people who ignore the fact that the Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran keeps, constantly threatening to kill every American.
But she says it's depressing to continue to watch what's going on in Washington and see that Hillary Clinton is still walking around, Barack Obama's planning a 2020 who's going to be his next president.
Okay, can we handle one of those at a time?
Well, yeah, but all those, let's not get into this China and...
Has been separated from the Democratic Party. She has lawsuits against her. She has the Federal Elections Commission's charges for the primary rigging, for stealing $84 million. There's now other states that are bringing those charges against her. There are 5 current investigations, new investigations. The previous ones were closed. They found nothing and reported nothing. So there are new investigations. They're down in Little Rock looking at the real Clinton scam, which is the early Clinton foundations. We see all kinds of problems for her. Now, with Obama, there's no day goes by that we don't find out, or let's say no week goes by that we don't find out more crimes Obama committed. For instance, it was illegal for him to do the EPA grab of the offshore waters of America and then say that you can't drill or look for anything, methane or any other resource in the ocean. That has now been overturned by a court just yesterday or the day before. So almost everything Obama did is being overturned. And when we finally get Obamacare completely flushed down the toilet, and when we get Obama's form of, I don't even know, let's not go there. Let's just say Obama is losing on all fronts. People are pulling out of Netflix because they don't want him anymore.
Well, we don't want Susan Rice either. Doesn't Netflix know? No, they probably don't. They're all run by liberals, but you probably could backtrack that up to the Global Engagement Center or some kind of government support, because Netflix isn't making that kind of money off of the few subscriptions it gets. But the other thing too, Thomas, is there you go, Clapper. Jeff Sessions just let the time lapse on all this perjury stuff, and I was telling her, I said, well, okay, that's just for the perjury. Clapper's done a lot of other crimes besides that, and the clock didn't run up on those.
There are probably, I would say, at least half the time he opens his mouth, he perjures himself and breaks his contract that for 5 years he can't speak of anything that he did as the director of the Office of National Intelligence. And if he does, and it has any bearing upon the president or any policy or any foreign policy, domestic policy, or any policy, any administrative anything, he should go to jail. So don't worry.
And perjury is his least a concern, because the guy was a traitor to the United States with its actions.
He was in charge of the attempted coup of our president, Donald J. Trump. And he was in charge of the meddling of the election. He was
now, you're naming Clapper as head, not Mueller.
No, Clapper
not Brennan.
Brennan started it, but he is a wimp. He is a sissy. That's the reason he denied everything early on, and now we have him for perjury for denying all these things. And he also incriminated people early on, but no one knew what he was talking about in those early testimonies before Congress. We did, and we called it out. And we even named that it would be the second in charge of the FBI's counterintelligence department that would take the fall, and that is Peter Strzok. Andrew McCabe's taking the fall for Comey, Loretta Lynch, Obama, Valerie Jarrett, Susan Rice, Samantha whatever her name is, Power, and all these other people who were caught red-handed. Everyone who signed a FISA warrant for the fake Carter Page FISA warrant that was directly stimulated out of a false document. First off, any good lawyer knows that you cannot develop an investigation out of a document that's been given to you that is unverified. If you do not substantiate and verify every element in it, then you using that document causes the entire investigation to be null and void. Anyone knows that. Anyone. So that's why they hid all of this. That's why the dossier is such a principal thing, and that's why Devin Nunes will not let up until he gets the names that are mentioned, not only for the informants Clapper now calls the spies, the British spies, put into the Trump campaign, and the setup, the framing of Papadopoulos, the framing of Manafort, the framing of Sam Clovis, the framing of Michael Flynn was all coordinated out of the White House. Susan Rice said that in her email to herself after the inauguration to make sure that she would exonerate herself and be able to say, like all the Nazis did, I was simply following orders. And they were. We now have the struck page text messages that show that Obama directed it from the White House. There's multiple messages, and we don't have the unredacted ones, and we don't have the best ones during the time that it turned into a direct attack by war actors. That would be Obama and his administration. They now become war actors as soon as Trump was elected and was president-elect. It now became sedition, treason, and more than a constitutional crisis, this is an attack upon the U.S. Constitution and the executive branch. Once he became president, and it continued, and we have their own words on, so Judy, don't be worried, honey. This is going our way. But remember, things take forever in politics, but Trump, the huge disruptor that he is, the biggest disruptor in U.S. history, is cutting all those things short. No president would have ever gone and met with Kim without giving them money that was all coordinated through the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the UN, the International Bank for Settlements. All of these things are part of the globalist system. And when politics is enacted, directed by the Council on Foreign Relations, it is all acting. That's the reason that the actor, Mr. Trudeau, I won't call him president because he doesn't deserve to be called president or whatever he is.
Just call him Justin. That's what Trump calls him.
Yeah. Justin, dude, when his eyebrows fell off and you found out everything about him is fake and he didn't know what a trade surplus was and whether he had one with America or not, though he was in a Trump tweet war over these concepts, he didn't understand how embarrassing for the world. How embarrassing for the world if you were a North Korean and Kim, you had to bow to him as a divine being. How embarrassed would you be that Macron represents you in Muslim-invaded France and he wants to say the Russians tried to intervene in their elections? How embarrassed could you be to have Angela Merkel once again representing your country and the European Union, and with Donald Tusk, the head of the EU? I'm sorry. I don't even know a word for that. There must be a new ism. That would be called Sorosism.
I'd put in a soundtrack right here, but I did it in the last video. And
evil is coming from the European Union.
Right. Okay, so, but then there were people saying that was too goofy. But although I thought it was fun. We had a good time. That was all it was, people.
I helped create Star Wars.
Yeah,
I get to make fun
right.
of people using the memes and the archetypes that literally I created those archetypes. The man-human interface was the issue of Star Wars. We now see that it is the issue now. Who's going to win? The stock market, which is run by computers and high-frequency traders now? Who's going to win? That's who controls the military-industrial complex. That's who controls the class of nations. That's who controls the Kissinger idea of OPEC and the manipulation of our stock market and our commodities and the U.S. Federal Reserve Treasury notes. Once you see through these things, and I think Trump is, and later today we're going to be talking with that genius Michael McKibben.
We had a huge minor find in the minds yesterday. We already brought it to surface, and our early readers have already seen it. But we have to explain it. We can't just leave it out there. We have to explain it. So in the next audio that we'll be uploading, Michael McKibben is going to be interviewing with Thomas Douglas, and they're going to be talking about what this is that they found. And it goes, of course, it goes back to the Brits. So it's very exciting. So I want to go back to propaganda news, because then when I query Judy, like, what are you watching? It's the same old. But she thinks that, she's watching Fox News, so that's got to be okay. And this is what I keep saying. Fox News is just as bad as the others, but they want you to think you're going to get good news. Now, I'm not saying that they don't have good personalities there that do a good job in their limited little box, but you can't expect them to break out of the box and go as far as we are taking you. So at some point, you need to break free of the programming that's going on in your living room or wherever you're picking up this propaganda stuff.
If you watch Fox News all day and you chose the best things they said and you were able to understand and discern what was the truth of what they said, it would be nothing more than reading one article in Truth News Headlines in the morning edition. Fox News is only dealing with what the bankers and brokers, the Associated Press, Reuters, Thomson, allow them to report. They will soon be bought out by one huge media company or another, and it'll be a leveraged buyout. And when they do, it will turn into the same thing Breitbart did. Remember, Breitbart was owned by the Mercers money, and the Mercers founded SCL, Cambridge Analytica, the very group that interferes in elections. Okay, so when we're talking about what's going to happen with Fox News, kiss it goodbye. Until we have a truly independent media station, you need to find places like Truth News Headlines to get your vetted information. And then, by the way, I just want to say this to Judy and to all of our tremendous followers. Every once in a while, Betsy shows me the astounding things you write in the remarks in relationship to what is posted and the videos and stuff. And I just want to thank you, because I didn't believe that there was such an audience out there that would be interested in hearing the truth, because the truth is hard to handle. It's called self-knowledge. It hurts. The truth hurts. Sorry. Later today, we're going to be speaking some truths that truly hurt. But once you get over the pain, the shock of that, turning the corner and seeing there's a world out there you didn't know existed, and your entire worldview has to be adjusted because we tell you something you can go verify, which you always believed was not true.
But also, people have to have a level of trust, because you're opening yourself up. You're being vulnerable when you hear these things, and you have to feel that the person telling it to you isn't trying to trick you or confuse you. And so that's what we've been trying very hard over the last year to continue to give you these audios so that you can see that what we're saying, where we're going, seems to resonate with what you are experiencing, so that you will trust us as we go to the next step. Now, when we say trust, we're not saying not to listen with critical thinking and checking out stuff, but at this point, the things that we have to share with you, you're going to have to be a little bit vulnerable to receive them.
And we're not news commentary. We're not bloviators. We are independent research journalists. And we are basically, when we give this commentary, as we are doing here or with the Trump tweets, what we are doing is we are giving some commentary, but we've backed it up by our own Anonymous Patriots intelligence reports. And these intelligence reports will give you all the places you can find the direct indictable evidence: government documents, court cases, lawsuits, the things, following the money, and also giving you a biographical framework for these people who are these characters and these evil machinations, or in the good things that are going on too. So when you really know who they are and what's driving them, it's real easy to predict what they're going to do next. Okay? It's so easy because they're not very smart.
Well, they're not creative. Clever. They're clever, but they're not creative. That's why they had to take over the U.S. Patent Office. They run it through Serco, and really the Queen is running it. And I know you say the Privy Council is actually behind it, but no, it's the Queen. She's the lady in charge. And if she's being held captive by these people at the Privy Council, this is her time to speak up and make it right, because because the world, we need to bring peace back to the world, and it can't happen until we get these thugs removed from power. So, Queen Elizabeth, this is Queen Betsy talking to you. Who's running the place? Is it you, or is it the Privy Council?
Good call out to Lizzie. I don't know if she'll respond. I don't know if she has our number.
I don't expect her to, but I'm going to put that consciousness out in the universe.
Can somebody please send her our broadcast? No, I'm sorry.
But people say, oh, it's not the Queen. She's a good lady. She doesn't know. She's not smart enough. She's whatever. The point is, she's in charge. That's her position.
Well, we are going to go into the details today with Michael McKibben about the Bank of England and about some organizations connected to the Privy Council and SCL, Strategic Communications Laboratories, the group I was just speaking about. That is so shocking that your preface to it is, I want to underscore that, because what Michael McKibben has now discovered with his researchers and the people at Americans for Innovation have given him as documentation, it is shocking. We've already posted it, but most of you probably, if you looked at that amazing miners find that Betsy's talking about, you might not have understood it, and you might not be jumping up and down cheering. But just like you can turn on any mainstream media and they're all going to be poo-pooing one of the most historic events in the last 70 years, which is what he did in North Korea. He first off, he beat him up with words and tweets, didn't he? And then, little Kim tried to respond back. And then pretty soon it was very clear that he had branded little Kim to be exactly what he is, the mouthpiece of China. Remember what he said in the elections. I'm going to remind people of this again and again and again for the next year as we see that complete denuclearization and seeing North Korea turn into really a manufacturing center for America. What did Trump say when he was asked, what would you do about North Korea? He said, I would slap China's face. That's what he's done. I sometimes say he be-slapped them. But he has slapped their face. He's slapping Iran's face. He's slapping Syria's face. He's slapping little Kim's face. And some of these people need to wake up because they've been in a dream that was created by American socialism where we have been vampirized, where the parasites of other countries thought that we were the piggy bank, as Donald Trump has called it, that they just go and get their money from anytime they want. And that, as he said, has ended. So we should be rejoicing. In fact, I'm thinking, what in the world is going on that's really horrible right now? 5G? Well, it's being fought and it's being called out before the big elites get it passed. Okay, Article 13 for the European Union that ends free speech, that's being called out. George Soros recalling the election on Brexit, that's being called out.
And plus the migrants aren't, Italy said, no, we're not taking these migrants anymore.
The 28 European Union nations said that the migrants go back home now, or in 5 years there'll be no Europe. We are seeing a turn of the tide, and we're seeing a riptide just pulling all of the trash out to sea, because that's what we've been dealing with in our foreign affairs, is nothing but trash.
Okay, and then give it a wrap up. Okay.
So, I'm so happy that I said I didn't know what we could talk about today, Betsy. All I could do is just go on saying positive things about everything going on in the world. I can name 100 positive things without even looking at a list that Trump has already accomplished. Go to.
It's like a controlled demolition. We know this old world is going to come down, but we want it to happen in a measured way so that we can keep the footprint pretty tight in. And that's what's happening. You're going to start seeing one floor after the other come down, but it's going to take a little time.
Let me explain something to people who don't know about Trump's business and about the way it happens on an international level, especially at the level he was dealing at. You go in and you create propaganda before you go to buy something. You create an atmosphere that devalues what it is you're going to go buy. That's just business, folks. That's called capitalism. It's called opposition research in politics. And so he knew full well that he was getting who Brad Parscale was. He also knew what he was up against, Eric Schmidt and the U.S. Digital Service. He also knew he was up against literally the Privy Council and, as you point out, the Queen of England, the monarchy. He was up against the most powerful monarchy who rules a bank. Later, we're going to talk about the Bank of England. It's going to shock you what we're going to tell you, because all your conspiracies you've ever heard are going to be clarified in that. But what's happening now is all the ideas that we have ever heard about politics and foreign diplomacy, flush it down the toilet. It doesn't apply to Trump. He's going to bilaterally come up with an agreement with each nation. He is not going to do any more group, stupid, vampirism trade deals with America and then put them in perpetuity like NAFTA that has cost us over $5 trillion, by the way. Anyone want to add up that? I think NAFTA should be flushed. TPP was about to gut us completely and give us completely over to the United Nations corporate intelligence group that would then be able to control all economy as one global economy. And that would have been the end of America. So rejoice. Trump is leading us into a new day.